The Śūraṅgama Sūtra, Fascicle 6 of 10. Chapter 4, Self-Enlightenment. Meditation on the Organ of Hearing. Thereupon, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and declared,
I still remember that long before numbers of eons, countless as the sand grains in the Ganges, a Buddha called Avalokiteshvara appeared in the world. When I was with him, I developed the Bodhi mind, and for my entry into samādhi, I was instructed by him to practice meditation by means of the organ of hearing. At first, by directing the organ of hearing into the stream of meditation, this organ was detached from its object, and by wiping out the concept of both sound and stream entry, both disturbance and stillness became clearly non-existent. Thus, advancing step by step, both hearing and its object ceased completely, but I did not stop where they ended. When the awareness of this state and this state itself were realized as non-existent, both subject and object merged into the void, the awareness of which became all-embracing. With further elimination of the void and its object, both creation and annihilation vanished, giving way to the state of nirvana, which then manifested. Suddenly I leaped over both the mundane and supramundane, thereby realizing an all-embracing brightness pervading the 10 directions, and acquired 2 unsurpassed merits. The first was in accord with the fundamental, profound, enlightened mind of all the Buddhas high up in the 10 directions, and possessed the same merciful power as the Tathagata. The second was in sympathy with all living beings in the 6 realms of existence here below in the 10 directions, and shared with them the same plea for compassion. World-honored one, as I followed and made offerings to the Tathagata Avalokiteshvara, he taught me to use my illusory hearing and sublimate it to realize the diamond Vajra Samādhi, which gave me the same power of mercy of all Buddhas and enabled me to transform myself into 32 bodily forms for the purpose of visiting all countries in samsara to convert and liberate living beings. World-honored one, if there are bodhisattvas who practice samādhi to attain the transcendental mean, when there is a chance for them to realize absolute wisdom, I will appear as a Buddha to teach them the Dharma to liberate them. If there are solitary students seeking only self-enlightenment who practice the stillness of nirvana, when there is a chance for them to realize it, I will appear as a teacher of self-enlightenment to teach them the Dharma to liberate them. If there are students of the 4 Noble Truths who, after realizing the unreality of suffering and its accumulation, tread the path leading to the extinction of passions, when there is a chance for them to achieve this, I will appear as a hearer, or Shravaka, to teach them the Dharma to liberate them. If there are living beings who realize the harmfulness of desire in the mind and abstain from all worldly cravings to achieve purity of body, I will appear as Brahma to teach them the Dharma to liberate them. If there are living beings who desire to be lords of devas, to rule over the realms of the gods, I will appear as Shakra to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to roam freely in the 10 directions, I will appear as Ishvaradeva to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to fly freely in empty space, I will appear as Maheshvara to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be lords of ghosts and spirits to protect their countries, I will appear as a great warrior to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to rule over the world to protect all its inhabitants, I will appear as a Deva king of the 4 quarters to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be reborn in the palace of Devas to command ghosts and spirits, I will appear as a son of the Deva king of the 4 quarters to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be kings of human beings, I will appear as a king to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be heads of clans to enjoy the respects of their clansmen, I will appear as a respectable elder, or grapati, to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who enjoy discussing well-known sayings and practice pure living, I will appear as a respectable scholar to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to govern cities and towns, I will appear as a magistrate to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who delight in practicing mysticism for self-welfare, I will appear as a Brahmin to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are men who are keen on studying and learning and leave home to practice the rules of morality and discipline, I will appear as a bhikshu to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are women who are eager to study and learn and leave home to observe the precepts, I will appear as a bhikshuni to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are men who observe the 5 precepts, I will appear as an upasaka to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are women who observe the 5 precepts, I will appear as an upasika to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are women who are keen to fulfill their home duties, thereby setting a good example to other families and the whole country, I will appear as a queen, a princess, or a noble lady to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are young men who are chaste, I will appear as a celibate youth to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are young women who are keen to avoid carnality in order to preserve their virginity, I will appear as a maiden to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are gods who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a Deva to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are dragons, nagas, who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a naga to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are yakshas who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a yaksha to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are Gandharvas who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a Gandharva to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are asuras who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as an asura to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are Garudas who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a Garuda to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are Kinnaras who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a Kinnara to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are Mahoragas who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a Mahoraga to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be reborn as human beings, I will appear in human form to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are non-human beings with or without forms, and either thoughtful or thoughtless, who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as one of them to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. These are my 32 transformation bodies in response to the needs of all countries in samsara, achieved by means of the uncreated, sovereign power of samādhi realized in my practice of sublimating the faculty of hearing. World-honored one, I also use this uncreated sovereign power of diamond samādhi, derived from sublimating hearing, to share with all living beings in the 6 realms in the 10 directions the same plea for compassion, and to bestow upon them 14 kinds of fearlessness which emanate from my body and mind. 1. Since I myself do not meditate on sound, but on the meditator, I cause all suffering beings to look into the sound of their voices in order to obtain liberation. 2. By returning discriminative intellect to its absolute source, I cause them to avoid being burned when they find themselves in a great fire. 3. By returning hearing to its source, I cause them to avoid drowning when they are adrift on the sea. 4. By stopping wrong thinking and thereby cleansing their minds of harmfulness, I lead them to safety when they wander in the realm of evil ghosts. 5. By sublimating their wrong hearing to restore its absolute condition, thereby purifying all 6 organs and perfecting their functions, I cause them, when in danger, to be immune from sharp weapons which become blunt and useless like water that cannot be cut, and daylight that cannot be blown away, because their underlying nature does not change. 6. By perfecting the sublimation of their hearing, its bright light pervades the whole Dharma realm to destroy the darkness of ignorance, thereby dazzling evil beings such as Yaksha, Raksha, Kumbhanda, Pishachi, Putana, etc., who cannot see them when meeting them. 7. When hearing is reversed so that sound vanishes completely, all illusory objects of sense disappear, so that practicers are freed from fetters which can no longer restrain them. 8. The elimination of sound to perfect hearing results in universal compassion, so that they can pass through regions infested with robbers and bandits who cannot plunder them. 9. The sublimation of hearing disengages them from the objects of sense and makes them immune from attractive forms, thereby enabling lustful beings to get rid of desires and cravings. 10. The sublimation of sound eliminates all sense data and results in the perfect mingling of each organ with its objects and the total eradication of subject and object, thereby enabling all vindictive beings to bury anger and hate. 11. After the elimination of sense data and the return to the bright reality, both inner body and mind and outer phenomena become crystal clear and free from all hindrances, so that dull and ignorant unbelievers, or ichantika, can get rid of the darkness of ignorance. 12. When their bodies are in harmony with the nature of hearing, they can, from their immutable state of enlightenment, or bodhimandala, re-enter the world to liberate others without harming the worldly, and can go anywhere to make offerings to Buddhas countless as dust, serving every Tathagata in the capacity of a son of the King of the Law, and having the power to give male heirs with blessed virtues and wisdom to childless people who want boys. 13. The perfecting of the 6 organs unifies their divided functions so that they become all-embracing, thus revealing the great mirror wisdom and immaterial Tathagata womb, compatible with all Dharma doors, taught by Buddhas as uncountable as dust. They can bestow a bright, blessed, gracious, and respect-inspiring girls on childless parents who want daughters. 14. In this great chiliocosm, which contains 100 lakhs of suns and moons, there are now bodhisattvas countless as sand grains in 62 Ganges rivers. They practice the Dharma to set a good example to all living beings by befriending, teaching, and converting them. In their wisdom, their expedient methods differ. Because I used one penetrating organ, which led to my realization through the faculty of hearing, my body and mind embrace the whole Dharma realm, in which I teach all living beings to concentrate their minds on calling my name. The merits that follow are the same as those derived from calling on the names of all these bodhisattvas. World-honored one, my single name does not differ from those uncountable ones, because of my practice and training which led to my true enlightenment. These are the 14 fearless powers which I bestow upon living beings. World-honored one, because of my perfect understanding, which led to my attainment of the Supreme Path, I acquired 4 inconceivable absolute virtues. 1. When I first realized the hearing mind which was most profound, the essence of mind, that is, the Tathagata store, disengaged itself from hearing and could no longer be divided by seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing, and so became one pure and clean, all-pervading, precious Bodhi. This is why I can take on different, wonderful forms and master a countless number of esoteric mantras. I can appear with 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and up to 108, 1,000, 10,000, and 84,000 sovereign or chakra faces, with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, and up to 108, 1,000, 10,000, and 84,000 arms, making various gestures or mudras, and with 2, 3, 4, 9, up to 108, 1,000, 10,000, and 84,000 clean and pure precious eyes, either merciful or wrathful, and in a state either of still imperturbability or dhyana samādhi, or of absolute wisdom or prajna, to save and protect living beings so that they can enjoy great freedom. 2. Because of my meditation by means of the organ of hearing, which resulted in my disengagement from the 6 sense data, like a sound going through a wall without hindrance, I can, with each appearance and with the aid of each mantra, bestow fearlessness upon suffering beings in countries as countless as dust in the 10 directions in which I am regarded as the giver of dauntlessness. 3. Because of the perfection which I won by sublimating the appropriate organ, living beings in countries which I visit lay down their desires and attachments and offer their bodies and treasures to implore my compassion. 4. As I have realized the Buddha mind and attained ultimate reality, I can make offerings to the Tathagatas in 10 directions and satisfy living beings in the 6 worlds who seek virtuous wives, good sons, samādhi, long life, and even parinirvana. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, my method, which consists in regulating the organ of hearing so as to quiet the mind for its entry into the stream of meditation leading to the state of samādhi and attainment of enlightenment, is the best. World-honored one, that Buddha praised my excellent method of perfection and gave me, in the presence of the assembly, the name of Avalokiteshvara, because of my all-embracing, absolute function of hearing. My name is known everywhere.
Thereupon the Buddha, from his lion seat, sent out from the 5 members of his body rays of light, which reached and shone on the heads of the Tathagatas and Bodhisattvas, countless as dust in the 10 directions. In return, countless Tathagatas sent back rays of light which shone on the heads of the Buddha, great Bodhisattvas, and Arhats in the assembly, causing the groves and streams to intone the Dharma, and uncountable rays of lights to interlace in precious nets, a spectacle never seen before. As a result, all the Bodhisattvas and Arhats in the assembly realized the diamond samādhi. At the same time, showers of green, yellow, red, and white lotus blossoms turned the whole of space into a 7-colored expanse and caused mountains, rivers, and the great earth to disappear, and all the countless other realms to merge into one universe filled with songs and recitations. Thereupon, the Tathagata said to Manjushri, "Son of the Dharma king, these 25 Bodhisattvas and Arhats, who no longer need to study and learn, have related the expedient methods used by them at the start of their practice for their realization of Bodhi. In reality, each of these methods does not differ from, and is neither superior nor inferior to, the others. Tell me, which one of them is suitable to Ananda, so that he can awaken to it, and which one is easy of achievement, for the benefit of living beings, who, after my nirvana, wish to practice with the Bodhisattva vehicle in their search for supreme Bodhi." Manjushri's Gatha teaching the appropriate method for human beings. As commanded, Manjushri rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and reverently chanted the following Gatha.
Perfect and clear by nature is the Bodhi ocean. Pure and faultless Bodhi is in essence wonderful. Its fundamental brightness shone, so by chance creating an object which then obscured its radiant nature. Thus in delusion there appeared one-sided emptiness, in which an imaginary world arbitrarily was built. Steadying itself, the thinking process made the continents, while the illusory knower became a living being. The voidness so created within Bodhi is but a bubble in the ocean. Worldly realms, countless as the dust, arose in this relative emptiness. When the bubble bursts, the void's unreality is exposed. How much more so is that of the 3 realms? Though all return to one nature at the source, there are many expedient methods for the purpose. Though holy nature pervades all, direct or inverse methods are expedients. Hence, newly initiated minds of different aptitudes are quick or slow to enter samādhi. Form, which from thought crystallizes, is too difficult to look through. How can perfection be achieved through this impenetrable form? Sound, voice, word, and speech are each confined to specific definition, which by itself is not all-embracing. How can they help perfection to achieve? Smell, perceived when in contact with the nose, without that contact is non-existent. How can that which is not always present be a means to achieve perfection? Taste exists not of itself, but is perceived when flavors present. Since sense of taste is ever varied, how can it to perfection lead? Touch exists when there's an object touched. Without an object, touch is not. Since contact and its absence are not constant, how can touch help to achieve perfection? Dharma is inner defilement called. Reliance thereon implies an object. Since subject and object are not all-embracing, how can Dharma lead one to perfection? The organ of sight, although perceiving clearly, sees things in front, but cannot see behind. How can partial sight of the 4 quarters help one to achieve perfection? The inward and the outward breath, have no link uniting them. How can they, thus unconnected, be used to achieve perfection? The tongue is useless, touching nothing. When flavor is present, there is taste, which vanishes when flavor's absent. How can this help to achieve perfection? Body must be conditioned to the object touched. Both cannot be used for all-embracing meditation, which is beyond both subject and object with their limits. How can this serve to achieve perfection? The tumult of thinking with the mind disturbs the serenity of right perception. Since stirring thoughts are most hard to eradicate, how can intellect serve to achieve perfection? Union of consciousness with eye and sight has three components that are not settled. How can that which is devoid of substance be used as a means to win perfection? The hearing mind, which reaches into space, needs a great cause for its development, but untrained men cannot realize it. How can this help to achieve perfection? Meditation on the nose is only an expedient means to control the mind by fixing it for the moment, but wrong dwelling can create an illusory abode. How can this be used to achieve perfection? Preaching the Dharma plays upon voice and words, but awakening occurred during practice long ago, words and speeches never going beyond the worldly stream. How can this be a means to achieve perfection? Observance of rules of discipline controls the body, but never that which is beyond it. Since control of body is not all-embracing, how can this serve to achieve perfection? Transcendental powers come from a former cause. How can they derive from discriminating consciousness? Since thinking from externals cannot stray, how can it serve to achieve perfection? If the element of earth be used for contemplation, it is solid and cannot be penetrated. Belonging to the worldly, it lacks spirituality. How can it be used to achieve perfection? If meditation be on the element of water, the thoughts that then arise have no reality. Beyond feeling and seeing is the Absolute. How then can water help to achieve perfection? If for meditation the element of fire be used, dislike of desire is not complete renunciation. 'Tis no expedient for newly initiated minds. How then can fire become a means to achieve perfection? If meditation is on the element of wind, motion and stillness are a false duality from which supreme bodhi cannot develop. How can wind serve to achieve perfection? If the element of space be used for meditation, its dimness and dullness cannot be enlightenment. Since whatever is unenlightened differs much from bodhi, how can the element of space help to achieve perfection? If on the element of consciousness you meditate, it changes and is not permanent, the mind fixed on it being false. How can that element then help you to achieve perfection? Phenomena are all impermanent. Thinking originally comes and goes. Since cause will ever differ from effect, how can the element of perception achieve perfection? I now submit to the world-honored one that all Buddhas in this world appear to teach the most appropriate method, which consists in using pervasive sound. The state of samādhi can be realized by means of hearing. Thus was Avalokiteshvara freed from suffering. Hail to the regarder of sound who, during eons countless as Ganges sand, entered as many Buddha lands to win the power and comfort of his independence and bestow fearlessness upon all living beings. O you who have achieved the sound profound, the seer of sound the purifier, who, unfailing as the sound of ocean tides, saves all beings in the world, make them secure, ensure their liberation and attainment of eternity. Reverently I declare to the Tathagata what Avalokiteshvara said. When one dwells in quietude, rolls of drums from 10 directions simultaneously are heard, so hearing is complete and perfect. The eyes cannot pierce a screen, but neither can mouth nor nose. Body only feels when it is touched. Mind's thoughts are confused and unconnected, but voice, whether near or far, at all times can be heard. The 5 other organs are not perfect, but hearing really is pervasive. The presence or absence of sound and voice is registered by ear as is or is not. Absence of sound means nothing heard, not hearing devoid of nature. Absence of sound is not the end of hearing, and sound, when present, is not its beginning. The faculty of hearing, beyond creation and annihilation, truly is permanent. Even when isolated thoughts in a dream arise, though the thinking process stops, hearing does not end, for the faculty of hearing is beyond all thought, beyond both mind and body. In this Saha world, teaching is by voice. Living beings who cognize not hearing's nature follow sound to continue transmigrating. Though Ananda memorized all that he had heard, he could not avoid perverted thoughts. This is to fall into samsara by clinging to sound, whilst reality is one against the worldly stream. Listen, Ananda, listen closely. In the name of Buddha, I proclaim the Vajra King of Enlightenment, the inconceivable understanding that illusions are unreal, the true samādhi that begets all Buddhas. You may hear of esoteric methods from Buddhas countless as the dust, but if you cannot eradicate desire, to hear much causes errors. To hear your very self, why not turn backward that faculty employed to hear Buddha's words? Hearing is not of itself, but owes its name to sound. Freed from sound by turning hearing backwards, what do you call that which is disengaged? When one sense organ has to its source returned, all the 6 senses thereby are liberated. Seeing and hearing are like optical illusions, just as all 3 worlds resemble flowers in the sky. With hearing disengaged, the illusory organ vanishes. With objects eradicated, perfectly pure is Bodhi. In utter purity, the bright light pervades all, with its shining stillness enfolding the great void. All worldly things, when closely looked at, are but illusions seen in dreams. Dreamlike was the Matangi maiden. How could she keep your body with her? Like a clever showman presenting a puppet play, though movements are many, there is but one controller. When that control is stopped, figures show no nature. Likewise are the 6 organs, derived from one alaya, which divides into 6 unions. If one of these returns to source, all 6 functions are ended. With all infection ended, Bodhi is then realized. Any defiling remnant requires further study, whereas full enlightenment is the Tathagata. Ananda, and all you who listen here should inward turn your faculty of hearing to hear your own nature, which alone achieves supreme Bodhi. That is how enlightenment is won. Buddhas as many as the Ganges sand entered, this one gateway to nirvana. All past Tathagatas have achieved this method. All bodhisattvas now enter this perfection. All who practice in the future on this Dharma should rely. Avalokiteshvara did not practice it alone, because through it I also passed. The enlightened and world-honored one has asked about the best expedients for those in the Dharma ending age who wish from samsara to escape in their search for nirvana's heart. It is best to contemplate on worldly sound. All other methods are expedients used by Buddha in particular cases to keep disciples from occasional trouble. They are not good for indiscriminate practice by men of different types. I salute the Tathagata's door, which is beyond the worldly stream. Blessed be coming generations, so that they have abiding faith in this easy expedient. 'Tis good for teaching Ananda and those of the Dharma-ending age who should use the hearing organ which surpasses all others and with the true mind accords.
After hearing this, Ananda and the assembly felt their bodies and minds to be in tune with the profound teaching. To them, the Buddha's Bodhi and Parinirvana were like the way home, which a traveler should know well before returning from a long journey abroad. Others present, such as the 8 classes of non-human beings, students of Hinayana, and bodhisattvas who had just developed the Bodhi mind, and whose number was countless as the sand in 10 Ganges rivers, awakened to their fundamental minds, avoided defilement, and won the pure Dharma eye. After hearing the Gatha, Bhikshuni's self-nature realized arhatship, and an uncountable number of living beings developed the unsurpassed Samyak-Sambodhi mind. Chapter 5. The Enlightenment of Others. Ananda adjusted his robe, brought his palms together, and prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha. He rejoiced at his good understanding of the mind and for the benefit of coming generations, bowed again and said,
O great, compassionate, and world-honored one, I have now awakened to the Dharma gateway to Buddhahood by means of right practice about which I have no more doubt. I have always heard the Buddha speak of bodhisattvas who, before their own liberation, set their minds on freeing others, and of Buddhas who, after their own complete enlightenment, appeared in the world to enlighten others. Though I am not yet liberated, I now vow to deliver all living beings in the Dharma-ending age. World-honored one, future generations will gradually move farther away from the Buddha and will meet heretics as many as the sand grains in the Ganges. In order to control their minds for entry into samādhi, what should they do to set up seats of study and learning, or bodhimandala, to keep the demon away and avoid failure in their cultivation of the mind set on enlightenment?
The Buddha praised Ananda and said, Excellent, Ananda, excellent. It is good that you ask about the setting up of bodhimandalas for the protection of living beings against failure in the Dharma-ending age. Listen attentively to what I now tell you. Ananda and the assembly reverently awaited the holy teaching. Discipline and its 3 decisive steps, Shila, Dhyana, and Prajna. The Buddha said, Ananda, you have always heard me teach about discipline, or Vinaya, which consists in the practice of 3 decisive steps, the control of mind, called Shila, which leads to stillness, or Dhyana, and thence to wisdom, or Prajna. This is called the threefold study of the supramundane way. Prohibition against carnality. Ananda, why is control of mind called Shila? If all living beings in the 6 worlds of existence abstain from sexual desire, they will not be subject to the continual round of births and deaths. Your practice of samādhi should free you from defilements, but they cannot be eliminated if your lustful mind is not wiped out. Even after you have acquired such wisdom, if you fail to kill sensuality, then when dhyana manifests, you will fall into the way of demons, in which their king takes the high, his male subjects the middle, and his female subjects the low rank. These demons have their following and boast of having attained the supreme path. After my nirvana in the Dharma-ending age, these subjects of Mara will be found everywhere, will encourage sensuality, and will disguise themselves as men of good counsel, or Kalyanmitras, and cause living beings to fall into the pit of lust, thereby missing the Bodhi path. You should teach worldly men who practice samadhi to cut off their lustful minds at the very start. This is called the Buddha's profound teaching of the first decisive deed. Therefore, Ananda, if carnality is not wiped out, the practice of dhyana is like cooking gravel to make rice. Even if it is boiled for hundreds and thousands of eons, it will be only hot gravel. Why? Because instead of rice grains, it contains only stones. If you set your lustful mind on seeking the profound fruit of Buddhahood, whatever you may realize will be carnal by nature. If your root is lustful, you will have to transmigrate through 3 unhappy ways, to the hells of fire, blood, and swords, from which you will not escape. How then can you find the way to cultivate the Tathagata's nirvana? You should cut off both the sensual body and mind until even the very idea of doing so ceases. Only then can you hope to seek the Buddha's enlightenment. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other one is that of evil demons, or papian. Prohibition against killing. Ananda, if living beings in the 6 worlds of existence cease to kill, they will not be subject to the continual round of births and deaths. Your practice of samadhi should free you from defilements, but if your murderous mind is not cut off, they cannot be eliminated. You may acquire much wisdom, but if you fail to stop killing, when dhyana manifests, you will fall into the way of spirits, in which the high rank is attained by the mighty ghost or preta, the middle one by flying yakshas and chief ghosts, and the low one by earthbound rakshasas. These have followers and boast that they have attained the supreme path. After my nirvana, in the Dharma-ending age, these ghosts will be found throughout in the world, and will boast of how they feed on flesh, which leads them to realize Bodhi. Ananda, I permit the bhikshus to eat only the 5 kinds of pure flesh, which are the product of my transcendental power of transformation, and not of animal slaughter. You, Brahmin, live in a country where vegetables do not grow, because it is too damp and hot, and because of all the gravel and rock. I use my spiritual power of compassion to provide you with illusory meat to satisfy your appetite. How then, after my nirvana, can you eat the flesh of living beings, and so pretend to be my disciple? You should know that those who eat meat, though their minds may open and realize a semblance of samadhi, are but great rakshasas who, after this life, will sink back into the bitter ocean of samsara and cannot be my disciples. They will kill and devour one another ceaselessly. How then can they escape from the 3 worlds of existence? In addition, you should teach worldly men who practice samadhi not to kill. This is called the Buddha's profound teaching of the 2nd decisive deed. Therefore, Ananda, if killing is not stopped, the practice of dhyana samadhi is like shutting one's ears while crying in the hope that people will not hear one's voice, or like trying to hide something that is already exposed to full view. All bhikshus who live purely, and all bodhisattvas, always refrain, even from walking on the grass. How can they agree to uproot it? How then can those who practice great compassion feed on the flesh and blood of living beings? If bhikshus do not wear garments made of Chinese silk, boots of local leather and furs, and refrain from consuming milk, cream, and butter, they will really be liberated from the worldly. After paying their former debts, they will not transmigrate in the 3 realms of existence. Why? Because by using animal products, one creates causes which are always followed by effects, just like a man who eats cereals grown in the soil and whose feet cannot leave the ground. If a man can control his body and mind, and thereby refrains from eating animal flesh and wearing animal products, I say he will really be liberated. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other is that of evil demons. Prohibition against stealing. Further, Ananda, if living beings in the 6 worlds of existence cease to steal, they will not be subject to the continual round of births and deaths. your practice of samadhi should free you from defilements, but if your robber's mind is not wiped out, they cannot be eliminated. You may acquire much wisdom, but if you do not stop stealing, when dhyana manifests, you will fall into the way of devils, in which the high rank is attained by cunning spirits, the intermediate one by evil spirits, and the low one by bedeviled men. These devils have their following and boast that they attain supreme bodhi. After my nirvana, in the Dharma ending age, these devils will be found everywhere in the world. They will hide their perfidy, pose as men of good counsel, and declare that they have won the superior Dharma to deceive the ignorant, who will thus lose their minds. Wherever they pass, they will cause untold miseries to their believers. This is why I teach the bhikshus to beg for food, so that they can overcome cupidity and realize bodhi. They do not cook themselves, and pass their remaining years as transitory travelers in the three realms of existence to prove their last transmigration without incarnating again. How can thieves who wear the Sangha robe act as Tathagata mongers and commit karmic deeds, claim that they all preach the Buddha Dharma? They are not true leavers of home, and are not ordained Hinayana bhikshus. They deceive an incalculable number of living beings, causing them to fall into the realm of unintermittent hells. After my nirvana, if there is a bhikshu who, in token of his determination to practice samadhi, lights in front of an image of the Tathagata a torch planted in his body, or burns a bone of his finger, or an incense stick inserted in his flesh, I say he will thus repay all his karmic debts since the time without beginning, will leave the worldly way forever, and will escape from the stream of transmigration. For although he has not yet attained supreme bodhi, his mind is already set decisively on the Dharma. However, without these small sacrifices, even if he realizes something, he will be reborn as a human being and will have to repay his former debts, as I did when I had to eat the grain fed to horses. Then you should teach worldly men who practice samadhi not to steal. This is called the Buddha's profound teaching of the third decisive deed. Ananda, if stealing is not stopped, the practice of dhyana samadhi is like pouring water into a vessel which will never hold it, in spite of the passing of eons, countless as dust. If this bhikshu does not keep garments in excess of what he needs, gives to others all food in excess of his requirement, joins his two palms to salute the community, and regards as praise abuse and blows, that is, if he is ready to give away his own flesh, bones, and blood, and if he does not pose as an expert interpreter of the expedient incomplete doctrine, and does not teach it to beginners in order not to mislead them, the Buddha will seal his realization of samadhi. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other is that of evil demons. Prohibition against lying. Ananda, if living beings in the 6 worlds of existence, after cleansing their bodies and minds from killing, stealing, and carnality, continue to lie, they will fail to realize samadhi and will become demons filled with pride and prejudice. As a result, they will lose the Tathagata seed, and, in their search for worldly fame, will claim that they have achieved and realized what really they have not. They boast of their realization of the states of Shrotapanna, Sakradagamin, Anagamin, Arhat, and Pratyeka Buddha, and the 10 stages of Bodhisattva development, in order to attract believers who will make offerings to them for the atonement of sins. These unbelievers, or Icchantika, will destroy the Buddha seed as easily as cutting into the trunk of a palm with a sharp chopper to stop it from growing. The Buddha predicts that these people will destroy their excellent roots, will not regain common sense, will sink into the 3 oceans or realms of suffering, and will never achieve samadhi. I now command bodhisattvas and arhats to appear in the Dharma ending age after my nirvana in all appropriate transformation bodies to save those caught in the wheel of samsara. They should come as monks, lay disciples, princes, ministers, boys, girls, and even as prostitutes, widows, rogues, thieves, butchers, peddlers, etc., to keep company with them and praise the Buddha Dharma in their presence so as to convert them and urge them to practice it. In so doing, they should not disclose that they are true bodhisattvas and arhats. They will not reveal to beginners the Buddha's esoteric cause, but when they are about to die, they will secretly show some proof of their enlightenment to increase their disciples' faith in the Dharma. How then can such persons deceive living beings by telling deliberate lies? You should teach worldly men who practice samādhi not to lie. This is called the Buddha's profound teaching of the fourth decisive deed. Ananda, if lying is not stopped, the practice of dhyana samādhi is like copying in excrement a sandalwood statue and expecting it to be fragrant, which is impossible. I teach the bhikshus to develop a straightforward mind, which is the temple of enlightenment, or bodhimandala, and to be righteous in their common acts of daily life, while walking, standing, sitting, and reclining. How can a liar pretend that he has realized the supreme Dharma? This is like a poor man proclaiming himself a king. He will only invite trouble and misfortune. Still less can he usurp the throne of the king of the law. If the causal ground is false, its fruit will be distorted, and the quest of Buddha's enlightenment will become impossible. If a bhikshu develops a mind as straight as a lute string, and is truthful under all circumstances, he will avoid in his practice of samādhi all troubles caused by the demon. I will seal his realization of the Bodhisattva Supreme Bodhi. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other one is that of evil demons.